Kate Carney here from the Cook County Forest Preserve to talk about electric vehicles. So we thought that was kind of a nice juxtaposition of going solar one month and electric vehicles the next month. A couple of housekeeping things, because we are recording, we are asking folks on Zoom and in the room to please remain muted, right? And for the folks who are on Zoom, if you would turn your cameras off, it just makes it a little easier for bandwidth for everyone if they're not having to also, their computers aren't having to deal with your camera video also. So that said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam. I'm the Community Engagement Librarian here at the Barrington area. As Community Engagement Librarian, I work for the benefit of the nonprofits in this area and alongside nonprofits in this area. And because we're already juggling so many things, we decided that I would talk instead of passing it to Jennifer as we normally do. So Jennifer is the chair of Go Green Barrington and founder thereof. And she and I have worked together on a number of programs, brought a number of things about the environment, about different facets of that to the library. So with that said, I am going to turn things over to Peter in a moment. We will ask as he is going through his presentation. For the people who are on Zoom, if you have questions, you can go ahead and place them in the chat as they occur to you. We won't interrupt his presentation unless he starts using a lot of acronyms and we're like, what are you talking about? But other than that, we'll let him go through, and he's been doing this for a while, so hopefully he'll answer most of the questions that will arise for people. And I think those are all the housekeeping and logistic things that I needed to go through. So again, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And Peter, it's you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. And thanks everybody for coming and joining us in the first ever hybrid presentation. I want to thank the library and Go Green Barrington. I have friends from Organized for Action, the Northwest Suburban Group. You know, I'm going to start, well, I'll introduce myself in a second, but I'm going to start by giving you the message I hope you will leave the room with, and that is, if you want to go solar, you can, and you can save money. Due to recent policies in Illinois, and we're a very progressive state when it comes to renewable energy, solar energy is now available to everybody, and I'm going to be discussing some of the choices you have. Even if you're renting, you can support solar. There's programs available. So it's a very important undertaking for people to transition their electricity generation source from dirty, fossil fuels to clean renewables. It's an imperative, and it's nice that we live in a state that's making it fairly easy. So I'm going to cover that. So let me first talk about the Illinois Solar Education Association and the Illinois Solar Energy. Actually, they're changing their name, Illinois Solar Energy and Storage Association. So as the technology advances, so do we. These are nonprofit. As individuals, if you're interested in joining the Solar Association, you join the Education Association. That's where individuals like myself are members. And then people who are in the business, they're in the Energy Association side. And we're all dedicated towards education and advocacy. I'm a member. Actually, I'm a homeowner. I'm retired. I live in Deer Park. I presented at the library. Now it's 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. But I go around the area and I give presentations, and my presentation is like homeowner to homeowner. It's not a technical presentation. We're not going to get into the weeds. I'm not going to be designing systems. I'm not going to be recommending brands of equipment or certain companies to do business with. I'm going to basically be using my experience with solar. In my last 2 homes, I've installed solar. So I'm going to be using that and explaining the road to go solar. Now, if you install solar on your home, you're going to become part of the Illinois energy portfolio. You're part of the grid. Our current grid, if you look at it, we're mostly a nuclear state. Following nuclear is coal. Now, those are technologies that, well, are becoming obsolete, very expensive, and we're looking for alternatives. The nukes are getting very old, and they keep coming to the legislator asking for more and more money every year, hundreds of millions of dollars. And you read the papers, and they say, if you don't give us this money, we're going to flip the switch. And they know we can't live without them. So it's very important that we as consumers seek alternatives and support those alternatives, wind, solar, etc. So this mix has to change, and solar is one of the options. But why go solar? We have a major crisis that humanity is facing right now called climate change, global warming. I know that is the reason that I initially made the change. I got a little message here. Okay, thank you. And that was the motivating factor for me and many of the people I know that have gone solar. Improves public health. Well, it doesn't improve public health, but it's not a technology that pollutes. It's not going to make things worse. As far as public health concerns are concerned. It's a real jobs engine. Solar employs already 4 or 5 times the number of people that work in the coal industry. So there's, as far as economic development, solar is a great opportunity there. And I'm going to discuss a lot about finances. That's what the first question I always get is, how much does it cost? It's so expensive. Well, solar, rooftop solar is the least expensive choice you have for electricity generation. Now, there are other forms of solar, and I'm going to make those, I will discuss those a little bit as well, but you can go solar and you can save money over doing nothing. Now, increasing your home value, if you spend $20,000, adding $20,000 of anything to your home, naturally its value increases. You'd expect a return on that. And so that's one of the ways the cost is returned to you it increases the net value of your home. And then the other really important thing is that with solar, you're not paying for fuel. That fuel is delivered to you whether you want it or not. Nobody controls it. No company, no country controls that fuel source. It is there. You're buying equipment that takes sunlight and transforms it into usable energy. So it's kind of a good direction for a country to go in as far as national security is concerned. Now, I want to cover some of the very common questions and myths before we get into the meat of the program. Starting at 12 o'clock, solar panels will cause my roof to leak, deteriorate, collapse. Well, the secret there is, looking at contractors, making sure you secure a very good, reputable contractor, and there should be no issues. I've never had an issue. I've been with solar for 12 years now. There's been no installation issues. In fact, there's been no maintenance issues at all. Installing solar will increase property taxes. Well, I mentioned how it will increase your home's value, and you would think, well, that might translate into increased home assessment and hence an increased tax. Illinois has a policy that added value is excluded or exempt from increasing property taxes. Not that it would increase it that much, but it is exempt. Not that many years ago, and I can speak from experience, adding solar to your home was a big expense. When I did it in 2011, it was a $50,000 expense. Now, we're probably down in the $20,000–$25,000 range for a typical home. It's too cold here and we don't get enough sunlight. Actually, solar likes it to be a little cool. We're not really concerned about temperature. We're concerned about access to sunlight. So, and the panels are built to withstand hail and bad weather and the like. Warranties will cover it, and if what warranties don't cover your home insurance, since it's attached to your home, your home insurance would cover that. So that's never been an issue. Utility will pay you for the excess energy. That's a very common question. No, they don't pay you. You're not going to lose it. What they do, and I'll be describing this repeatedly, of as you generate energy, what happens to it? If you're not using it, what happens to it? You're going to be able to, the utility will keep track of it and they'll roll it over from month to month. And I'm going to give you examples of that. It's too expensive. It was very expensive, but even when it was very expensive, it still was a good investment. Now it's tremendously good with the incentives, and I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty on the dollars and cents. It'll be harder to sell my house. Well, again, I can speak from experience. I'll be showing you the two houses that I had solar on. First one in Palatine. I was a little nervous. I was kind of early into the solar, having solar on the house group, and I didn't know how I'd be perceived in the market as something that hands off, but my house sold within a few days of when I put it on the market, and that was in 2016. And you have to have a south exposure. That's the best exposure. Again, the more directly you're facing the sun, the better. Shading issues can contribute to your home not being adequate, but east-west exposures are also suitable. You're not going to be quite as productive, but a good contractor will lay out all the options, and they have models that will be very, very precise on what you can expect as far as production. And then you can just take a look and say, is that worth it for me? Most homes are not suitable. You know, oak trees that you don't want to cut down, wrong orientation. But again, a good contractor can very quickly assess your home and whether it's suitable or not. So what's happening in our world as we transition to renewables, and it's exciting, is that the grid is changing, and we're moving from large central power plants and running wires from house to house. It's much like the computer industry. If you think back not that long ago, where we had huge data centers and then the dumb terminal on your desk, and now we've gone to all this networking, and I have more power in my pocket with my smartphone than some of these data centers I at one time maintained, and I was in that business of maintaining computers, and that industry basically went away. So what's nice is we've got this distributed generation. You'll hear the term DG, or distributed generation, and every home that puts solar panels becomes part of that grid, and think of all the power that 1 million homes with solar panels on them, that can be the equivalent of a power plant. So again, and it's also a little more secure. I mean, if a central power plant goes down, everybody's affected. If my home goes down, I'm basically the only one that is affected by that. So solar systems are not very complicated. There are solar panels. Typically, they're mounted on a roof. They can be mounted on land as well if you have enough land and it's suitable. But the best is on a rooftop, because you're not occupying land that could be used for other reasons. So you have the solar panels. They generate DC electricity. Now our homes use AC electricity. So the other piece of equipment you'll be purchasing will be called an inverter, and that takes the DC, converts it to AC, and then that just plugs into your service panel, you know, your fuse box. So now just about everybody I know, we stay connected to the grid. So you'll have essentially two sources for energy, for electricity for your home: your solar panels and then the grid. And your home just, you're not going to notice any flickering or anything like that. It's just, you have this power and your home just draws from the source that it needs to. Certainly at night, it's all coming from the grid, but during the day, it could be a combination. You're going to be drawing from your panels because they're generating electricity. And if they're generating too much electricity, that extra is going to go out on the grid and be used by your neighbor or whoever. This back and forth, there's a term, and it's a very important term called net metering. And I'm going to talk a lot about net metering. It's probably the most important feature about owning solar panels, is that you net meter. Again, you're connected to the grid and you're sending energy and you're getting energy from the utility and you're sending energy to utility, and how that is treated is driven by legislation, policy. And again, Illinois has one of the best net metering policies in the country, which basically says for every unit of energy I put on the grid, the utility owes me that back. Now, I pay for the transmission like I would, you know, the wires, I'm using them, but I don't pay any extra for getting that unit back. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Utilities don't like it. And in states that have changed that ratio, like you give the utility one, they're going to give you one back, but they're going to charge you, 5 cents, per kilowatt hour, that you sent them. It's really hurt the solar industry. But Illinois has a policy, and there's a cap to it, but we don't have to worry about it right yet, where it's a 1-to-1. And so that's real important. I think I looked at how much energy I put on the grid, and it's something like 70% of my production I put on the grid. So to have to be charged again to get it back would make the whole concept of solar maybe not efficient or effective. So that's net metering, and you'll have a meter on your house, a smart meter, and it monitors that. Now, a best way to sort of, before I start showing you an actual bill, I want to describe something else here. When you're using solar for your source of electricity, the production curve, you'll see it's just like this slope up and then down. Well, short days in winter lead to long days in summer, and then the days get short. So that's, your production is going to follow that kind of a curve. But your usage is this up and down. And why is that? Well, winter, we have a lot of lights on because the days are short, so we have more lights. We're using more energy. We're using furnaces and the like. So we tend to use a lot more energy in winter, and in summer, the heating is replaced with cooling technology, so air conditioners are going. But in the fall and the spring, probably not much in the way of heating and cooling going on. The days are relatively long. So that's where you're going to find your usage is the lowest. So when you put the two together, there are these gaps, these surpluses, and then these deficits. And that's where the net metering comes into play. Because as I mentioned, when you have a surplus, and I'm gonna illustrate this by showing you an actual bill from ComEd. When you have a surplus, the utility will hold it. And if you don't need it, then in the next month you need more energy, they roll it over. So the idea is that you build up enough surplus in the spring that when in the summer you're coming up short as far as energy production, that you have enough in reserve that will offset that extra that you need. And another way to illustrate this is to show you an actual bill, and hopefully you can see some of the numbers here. But when you have solar, you're going to have a little different looking bill. Under meter information, there's going to be two lines. And those lines, basically, the top one says kilowatt hours from the grid. So that's how much the utility sent you. The second line says kilowatt hours to grid. That's how much energy you sent, extra energy from your system you sent to the utility. So you're going to pay the difference. So that's how you're really going to see net metering on your bill. Now you can see that, well, I can barely read this one here, that, well, in this particular bill, under miscellaneous, it may be very hard, it says net metering excess generation rollover, and it's like 1,800 kilowatt hours. So even though this particular person brought in more energy than they put out on the grid, they had enough excess from a previous month that it wiped out. Look at their supply cost, it's zero. And that's what we're after. We don't want to have to buy any fossil fuels. Delivery, yes, we're tied to the grid, so it's only fair that we maintain the wires. And then, of course, taxes and fees, there may be a few there. So this is like a typical bill for a properly sized solar system for a home. At the end of the day, you're just paying for some delivery charges, but you're not paying supply charges. And I already explained this, the back and forth. Okay, so hopefully seeing those bills of zero or just a few dollars is attractive to you, because that's really where you're heading. When you buy solar, you're becoming an energy producer, but you're also that energy producer's customer. And so that's the best of all worlds. You're the producer, you're the customer, there's no middle people in there. And so ultimately, electricity cost becomes a non-issue for you. So the process of going solar is that you do have your home, your site evaluated. It's simply done. Often contractors can simply Google Earth your home, take a look, and say, looks fine. Your roof is not cluttered, it's not shaded. And yes. Now, we recommend that if you do plan to go solar, that you contact 2 or 3 contractors and get bids and compare them. They may take a little slightly different approaches. They might have different brands of panels or inverters to offer you. It's like any home improvement. If you're shopping around for a furnace or anything, you know, compare offers, get references, ask for referrals, do your homework. A good contractor then will walk you through all of the red tape, and there is some unique agreements that you might sign. One will be an interconnection agreement. You are an electricity producer and you want to be connected to the grid. So you're going to sign an agreement, and ComEd will needs to know that you're connected, and that also is what gets the net metering underway. The contractor will probably get a building permit from your town, and there may be a fee associated with that. They'll present you with a design and all of the various costs, and you approve it. They get you lined up for the installation. The actual installation doesn't take long, a day or two. And I'll show you some pictures of that, but most of it is just getting through some of the paperwork, and solar installers are busy these days. There's never been a better time to go solar than now. And so there may be a waiting list. Now, you may encounter things like at the Illinois Solar Energy Association website, we have lots of information there, so you can continue to dive into the subject and be educated. We do offer a solar calculator. I caution against using calculators in the early stages because, you know, like anything, garbage in, you get garbage out. It could, you know, if you don't put in the right information, because you don't know any better at this stage, you could get some scary numbers back and go, well, that's no good. I've tested these with actual numbers, and the calculators work very well, but and they're a good way to take a proposal, a quote, and the contractor saying, you know, you'll get 9,000 kilowatt hours from my system. We'll take his specs, put it in the calculator, and that calculator should come back and say, yeah, you know, this is going to give you 9,000 kilowatt hours. So they're good ways to kind of do your homework, check your homework. We have a find a professional tool. Again, we're not going to pinpoint contractors, but we can highlight. I see members that are near you. It's probably going to be more of a geographic saying, okay, here are some companies that are pretty close to you. We're looking at building up a public forum where people can exchange comments and ideas and questions and other resources for homeowners. So there's a lot of information out there so that you can become conversant. So when a dealer comes and they talk about net metering and renewable energy credits and incentives, that you have a sense of what they're talking about, and you know enough if they haven't mentioned state, you know, credits to ask them. And we're going to start to get into the numbers pretty soon. So the other consideration besides selecting a contractor is how are you going to pay for this? In the long run, it's not going to cost very much, but on the front end, you have to come up with all of the money before you get the tax credits and before you get the rebates. You're going to have to come up with the money. And as with any home improvement, you can get bank loans, you can do home equity loans. I've done that. Maybe you have the cash sitting there. You don't want to invest it in a market that's very volatile. Well, this is one of the safest investments you can make right now. So there's all kinds of schemes now with more and more companies coming into the state and doing business. It's like buying a car. You want to lease it, you want to rent it, you want to, you know, partially own it. I don't know. There's all kinds of things, including, not owning it, where they will place the equipment on your home and they will monitor the energy it generates and charge you for the energy that it's providing you. So depending on your budget, whether you want to own it or you just you want some other scheme that works into your situation, you can find it, including leases as well. Now, if you do purchase a solar system, you'll be entitled to a federal tax credit. And it was going down in value recently until the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in 2022 brought it back up to 30%. And you can see that's good through 2032. So these incentives are very important to consumers, and if you don't buy, the solar industry isn't selling. So as these incentives have come and gone, that the solar industry has just gone through peaks and valleys, and it's been a very, very difficult business to be in. So they're looking for certainty. We're starting to see more certainty, and they're getting more and more busy. So 30% tax credit. This is not a deduction. This is a tax credit. So if the system cost you $20,000, and that's everything, permitting cost, everything in there, the cost $20,000, you take $6,000 off your taxes when you sit down and do it. Now on the state side, it's a little different. It isn't just a rebate. It's going to take me a minute or two to explain it. When you own a renewable energy system and you're producing renewable energy, there's something called a renewable energy certificate or credit, REC. We call it RECs. And if it's a solar renewable energy credit, we use the acronym SREC. This is the way the state counts energy. They look at, because one REC equals 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy produced. Now, whether you use it or you don't use it, it doesn't matter. You've produced it, and it's either gone, you've used it, or it's gone on the grid. And the state has, as you may be aware, goals that it has set that our energy portfolio will be X% renewables by a certain year. Now, we want to be 100% carbon free with our energy by, I think, 2050. So they have goals, and the way they see whether or not we're meeting those goals is by counting RECs. Utilities generate renewable energy. They get to report their RECs to the state. Now, the only way the state knows I have a solar system, and if I'm generating clean energy, is if I tell them. So they have programs where, and a very good one right now, let me see if I got a slide on that. Well, I explained what a REC is. Again, that's 1,000 kilowatt hours of clean energy that you produced. You earn one REC. And then what the state is doing right now is they will buy all of your RECs up front for the next 15 years. So let's say you generate 10 RECs a year, which would be somewhat typical for a home. That's 10,000 kilowatt hours. And you generate that for 15 years. That's 150 RECs. They will buy that 150 RECs up front now and write you a check. And the current price that they're offering is close to $65. So you can kind of do the math, and that can add up to 25–35% of your system cost. So the feds are going to give you 30%, the state's going to give you 30%, and then the rest you'll make up with savings. Remember that zero electric bill? So it's like getting a monthly dividend of not paying a bill. If you don't have to pay $100 every month, that's going to start adding up. I know I save about $1,000 a year on my electricity. I am getting real close with my second home here of having everything paid off and basically living with free electricity. And that's quite a liberating feeling. So it's, as you can see, it gets a little complicated. Contractors will walk you through all of that. They're going to say, okay, this is how much you'll get from the state. This is how much you'll get from the Fed. They'll come up with what I call your pocket price. And I'll give you some examples, my examples on that. Now, so much of all of this I'm talking about is generated by policy. And Illinois had a few years ago a bill called the FIJA. What was that? What did that stand for? FIJA. Energy, I don't know, but and now the last one is the latest one is CJA, which really started ramping up a number of things. And that stands for Clean and Equitable Jobs Act. And we'll get into that, but that's where all of these rebates from the state come in. And they what's nice is that they carve out pieces of it for everybody. So like the utilities just can't come and grab all of the RECs that the state wants to buy. That is so much is assigned to the different categories of potential users, from homeowners to schools to, you know, bigger installations and so on. And this kind of shows you how it's called the Illinois Adjustable Block Program, and there's a website. Website is called Illinois Shines, or you can just Google Illinois Adjustable Block Program, and they have dashboards in there. They have contract terminology, and you can see how they've taken that adjustable block program, that program where they want to incent people to go solar, and then they've further broken it down into community solar block, a large distributed, small distributed is us homeowners, et cetera, et cetera. So they're really trying to make it very equitable, and even low income individuals can participate. They get greater benefits because of their income level. So it's you know, hats off for Illinois for being progressive, equitable, and really trying to drive us in the right direction here. And at the end of the day, leaving more money in our pocket. Now, I'm going to get into my story a little bit, and it does, I guess I'm an old timer in more ways than one when it comes to solar, in that my first installation was in 2011, and I didn't know anything about solar. All I knew is I had a moral debate on my hands. It's called, I'm a grandfather and there's climate change. And what I don't want to be part of the problem anymore. And what are some of the steps that I can take to not be part of the problem? And I had to change, I had to look at my lifestyle and start changing my lifestyle. And I thought, well, solar panels. I thought that I would be paying a premium for going solar, but it was one of these things, if not me, then who, and if not now, when? So I now have 5 grandchildren, so I'm super motivated. But, and little did I know that I guess I was a bit of a novelty too. And so and even up till a couple months ago, they're still writing about solar, but the story has changed from one of boy, this is new, and you know, look at what's happening that's so new, to well, you're probably thinking about going solar. Here's some guidelines, you know, to help you make the decision. So that's good to see, but I'd still like to see things move even more rapid. As I mentioned, I did my 2 homes that you saw there, and the installation process is fairly straightforward. The solar panels don't lie on your roof. They're on rails, you might say. They're off a few inches so that there's some airflow. Again, they don't want to get too hot. They lose efficiency. So they mount those rails on your roof. The panels are attached to rails. You know, they clean it up. You can see there, that roof was up very high. That was a south-facing roof, and that was on the rear of that house. And that was the finished product. And that system generated about 90% of my need in that house. The other thing when you do own your own system is that you'll have the ability to dial in and see that system and get all kinds of data. How much energy is happening at the moment? What did I produce yesterday, last week, since the day it was installed? All of that data is yours. You can see on that particular diagram that 3 panels are black. It's like, what's going on there? Are they down? Well, they could be, but that was my chimney shading those panels. That's all. But they could have been, you know, down. So again, if you're into numbers and crunching numbers and want to get kind of geeky with the system, you can play around. And I look at it certainly monthly, and look at my production and my usage, and seeing that that my behavior is where I want it to be. Also, you can see production curves. That's a perfectly sunny day, but even if it's raining, you'll be generating some energy. Now, you might say, how can their models be so accurate here in Illinois when you'll have snow on the panels one week, and then it's cloudy and it's sunny? These models are very accurate. I've tested them. They said, with my last system, they said I would produce over 5 years, 43 RECs that I ended up selling. I produced over 5 years, 43 RECs. So, you know, it's they really have it down. So let me talk now about some of the numbers. In 2011, this is what I had to come up with: $47,000 to put that solar array up. And I really didn't know that much about incentives and stuff. I don't know, the contractor didn't get into great detail there. Well, they told me about the incentives, but it was after I took the number after incentives. You can see that's what I was out, because I got back everything but 19,000, and then that 19,000 is what I would work off through savings. And when I looked at that number and I started saying, well, you know, it's saving me X amount per month. You know, at the end of the day, this system really isn't going to cost me anything more. So again, my motivation is I didn't want to be on fossil fuels. So even back in 2011, at that price, I could get off of fossil fuels, and at the end of the day, really not be out any money. So I was happy about the decision, and started speaking shortly after that. In 2017, I moved to Deer Park, and this is the house. And you'll see it's about the same size system, I went from 47 to 27,000. After incentives, less than $10,000. So this is more typical of what kind of pricing you'll see, and probably this is already 6 years old, a little high. One way to look at comparing offers is just after incentives and everything, take that number and look at what's my price per watt. And we're shooting for under $1. Again, that's just getting really super inexpensive. But and the other thing is, I went from 28 panels to 21. The panels are becoming more and more efficient, and they're up even from 2017. So we'd probably be more like 18 panels to do what I need. So I see the day, like computers, where 15 panels will do this, maybe 10. I believe there's going to be a day where one panel is going to be that efficient. Again, just look at your smartphones and how much technology is packed in there. I can't even comprehend it. And I come from the computer industry, and I can't even comprehend that anymore. So I'm a huge optimist when it comes to energy, and the fact that energy is going to be available to everybody, and it's going to be a negligible cost. But we as consumers have to drive this. We have to drive this thing, because if they don't sell solar panels, they go away. So here's just a little more detail. And again, the economics of solar, I like to kind of attack it a few different ways. Here's another way of looking at it. In the home I'm in right now, my total cost was $9,500 after incentives. And I have a system that is guaranteed to produce 215 kilowatt hours of energy. So just do the math. Essentially what I did was I locked in a price of 4.4 cents per kilowatt hour. Given, and it's not going to rise or anything. If I did nothing, and what's a kilowatt hour? 12, 13 cents? Is it going to stay at 12 cents? Is it going to go down? No. The energy inflation is around 4%. So in 25 years, I'm still, averaging 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And my neighbor might be paying 50 cents a kilowatt hour. So again, you're not going to buy fuel. You're going to buy equipment, and it's guaranteed to produce so much energy. You pay the bill, you're done. So personally, this is one of the best things I've done as a homeowner. It kind of gives a little bit of a silver lining to this crisis that motivated me to get involved in this, called climate change, where I was beside myself, with almost depressed over the outlook. And this is one of the few positive messages I can offer here is, let's transition to clean energy and start, getting control of this crisis, and in the process, save ourselves money, at least here, because food costs, water costs, things like that might and will go up. Before I slip into another subject, I wanted to show you my production. This is another way of looking at that net metering. This is my production in 2019. And you can see that most months I'm deficient. Again, the system I have in Deer Park is a little undersized. But even being undersized, remember how I said in spring and fall, you tend to, well, there you can see, even with a system that basically is generating 70–75% of my overall energy, come the spring, and the fall is better than most months, but I actually generated excess. So I don't like the fact that I'm only 75% solar. So what I did to address the remaining is I subscribed to a community solar project. I could have added more panels to my roof, but it's the front of my house and I didn't want panels all haphazard. I was concerned about the aesthetics. So I subscribe to a community solar, and this is something that is available to everybody. You don't have to worry about owning anything. If you're in an apartment, you rent, if you get a bill from ComEd, you can go community solar. And what it is developers only recently, only a few years ago, because of state incentives, have entered the state and are building these large solar farms. And then they offer subscriptions. You just say, you send them a copy of or you give them their account number. They can look that up and they can see how much energy you're using and then give you a subscription that will put on the grid the amount of energy to offset the energy you use. So while these panels aren't sitting on your roof, they're sitting somewhere else, you're getting credit for the energy those panels are producing. So it's the same thing. I mean, as I said, most of the energy I produce in my home, it goes on the grid. And then at night, I'm calling for energy from the grid. So, but the point is we need to offset all of the fossil fuel energy that's on the grid by these various programs. So, there's a solar farm, they sell a subscription, you can sign up for the subscription, and then what happens, I'm going to illustrate this by way of a bill as well. This is an actual bill of mine, and don't worry about that top part under meter information. That's because of my solar system. Go down to the second section there. It says renewable community supply. The way this works is the developer monitors and reports to ComEd how much energy your subscription has generated, and they monetize it. They apply a rate to it, and you can see that I earned a credit of $25.85. So they take that money and they look around on my bill and say, where can I apply it? The first thing they want to do is it's supply. So they put that credit into supply. I didn't need it because that particular month I overproduced. So you see, my supply isn't not just zero, it's negative $25.85. So that ended up wiping out my delivery costs and my taxes. And I even still had $11.50 to carry over into the next month. And I also had something like 600 kilowatt hours from my system to carry over to the next month. The point is, I'm 100% solar. Okay. And the way I'm doing it is a little piecemeal, but you can go all community solar. Now, it doesn't mean I don't get a bill for that. I get a bill from the community solar developer, but it's that 2585 less 20%. Okay, so they tell ComEd one number and then they bill me a lower number, so I save $5. Now, I just grabbed this screenshot today. You can see that my lifetime savings with this community solar is $87. Again, it's a small subscription. It may be like 6 panels. So I'm not asking for a lot of energy, but if I did nothing, I would have spent $90 more. So again, here's a way, I can now say I'm 100% solar. I'm saving money on every every way I look at it. And they even have a picture of the solar project that I subscribe to, like 7,000 panels. So community solar, I love it because again, it's for everybody. I hope everybody here leaves and goes solar, after tonight, one way or another. Now, I'm going to wrap up here, just going to mention one other program. It's called Solar for All. Again, Illinois, hats off to the work that they did, and literally dozens and dozens and dozens of companies got together to design this energy bill. Solar for All is a low income program. Basically, it has incentives, but they're more generous incentives, and it's based on a income level. It depends on how many people in a family, and there's a formula, and you apply, and they have special contractors that do the work. And I know one person who has used this and said, their solar system, it cost them nothing to be installed, and they're, and lowered their energy costs quite a bit. And that's the whole point, is that the people most in need of lower energy costs naturally are lower income communities and people. And if solar has that capacity, and obviously it does, I feel a little guilty because I can afford ComEd rates, but I'm paying 4 cents a kilowatt hour. That benefit has to reach more and more people. So the Solar for All program, just be aware of it. If you think you might qualify, or if you know somebody, have them investigated, because it's a way, again, for them to greatly lower energy costs. And we know that that's a major concern for, unfortunately, many people. So next steps, go home, make a call, get online. With community solar, I recommend you go to the Citizens Utility Board, their website. They have a nice, just a page sheet here listing the active community solar offers, and they do a comparison, kind of like a buyer's guide. And it was just updated in February. And you can go down and start checking out the offers. And again, it costs nothing to sign up, and you can cancel at any time, and you're not buying anything. You just sign up, and when you go live, your bill will change, and you'll start seeing those credits. So again, there's no roadblocks there. And as you move, you can take your subscription. Once you have a subscription, they, like my subscription, is good for 15 years. And then after 15 years, I can re-up it. Some of them 20 years. It doesn't mean you're stuck. I mean, it's just they can't take it away from you. And if you move, let's say you're renting, as you go from apartment to apartment, if you're still on the ComEd grid, you keep your subscription with you. So again, it's something definitely to investigate. The best is to buy your own. We encourage you to become members of ICEA, support the industry. I'm not paid to do this. I'm a volunteer with ICEA. I really enjoy doing this, but it's important to me to see solar panels increase in volume out there. We continue to add more and more education to our curriculum. As battery technology develops, we'll be out there explaining that technology. Oh, something I didn't mention and I didn't factor into my numbers. I drive an EV. And so my electricity, that solar uh, fills my tank. And so that cost is another benefit as well. Because the two biggest sources of emission is transportation is number one. Number two is electricity generation. So as we clean up our electricity generation and we electrify our transportation, be it our vehicles, school buses, and all of that, we're now taking a big bite out of that emission pie, which we are just so delinquent in doing. So I've done it personally and have found the economics to be, you know, indisputable. So, but I see it offers a way for you to maybe get a electric car. Every year we raffle off a Tesla. We're doing another Tesla Model Y. I don't know, and now that there's more choices, maybe we'll change the model. Only 2,500 tickets are sold, so your chances are good. That you just go to our website and check that out. So that's it. Here's contact information. I guess I will take questions, and if you feel free to contact me if you have other questions, and go to the ICEA website as well for information. So do we?
Okay. If we can do it this way, I had 8 questions that came in from our Zoom audience, which I grouped roughly into 4 categories. So maybe I'll do one category, and then if there's folks here with a question, and then we'll come back to the questions from the Zoom folks, give everybody a fair shot.
Okay.
But we don't want to take too much more time tonight. So I think we'll address this one first. I got 3 questions related to the roof, basically. So I'll group these together and you can decide if it makes sense to answer them as a group or not. So the first one was, what if you have a flat roof? How do they accommodate that? Second one was, what if your roof needs replacing and you already have solar panels in place? And then, do you know anything about when solar shingles will be available in this area as opposed to solar panels?
Yeah, those are pretty common. So the first question was a flat roof. Yeah, I mean, they can angle them up. It's if you've seen, you know, when they ground mount that, and as a matter of fact, if you go into some industrial parks are a great opportunity. If I owned a warehouse, I would be loading up the roof with solar panels and calling myself a community solar provider, and selling shares that way. So there's they can angle it up. Now, naturally, that's going to add costs. It's a little more hardware, but it's possible. As far as replacing roof, if definitely you should, before you install solar, you should have your roof inspected. And if it looks like you're about to need to have it reshingled, then have it done. It doesn't mean that once the solar panels are up there, you can't reshingle. It just means you're going to have those panels and the racks removed, and that's a labor cost. You're going to have to bring the contractor back and say, take them down, reshingle, and put them back up. It could cost a few thousand extra dollars. And the other one was shingles. Well, Tesla had solar shingles. They're more expensive. I think we're not seeing too much. I don't know if I've seen any, but I think it's just a matter of cost. You know, they're pretty and expensive, and maybe in California where they're $1 million homes, deserve that, but so I think it's you know, it's supply and demand. The technology exists. We practical Midwesterners, you know, just aren't demanding them all that much. I think again, I have seen barriers to this technology. If you Google some upcoming technology, there's all kinds of fascinating things that's in the lab. I mean, from painting on solar collectors and all. So.
What's the expected durability? 20 years?
You typically you'll find a 25-year warranty on those, and what they do is they look at the production of the panel and the warranty. Well, again, you got to read the warranty, but basically, like the panels I have, if the efficiency of the panel drops below 90, % compared to what it started out, then they would replace it. As far as damage, they're really tested against, it's like a car windshield, can handle hail and the like. I don't get up there and do anything. I don't get up there and sweep it off. If it snows, I let it melt. Okay. So I don't go up there and brush it off or anything like that. I just let it be. I look, since there is gap underneath, I'll look and make sure a squirrel isn't nesting under there and maybe deciding to have a lunch on a wire. So I keep an eye on that. But been no issues.
What's your opinion on the battery bank today as far as the technology of it? Does it work?
Batteries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I don't see much. I mean, I guess I know one person that has batteries on their system, and it because of their line of work or something, they just can't afford to have any up and down. But net metering, it's hard to compete with net metering. Net metering will cost you $50 to sign up, and the utility is your battery. When you have excess energy, you're going to put it on the grid, and when you need it, it comes back. And all you need will come back. So I didn't spend more than 5 seconds thinking about that, and just now there was a time where they were trying to kill net metering in Illinois. And my only response then would have been to go buy batteries. But the legislation in Illinois, they're not very fond of the utilities and ComEd bribery and all that. I mean, they're not. ComEd has a lot of credibility to work on with the legislators. Up until recently, they were writing all the energy laws, but no more. They're not listened to as closely anymore. So again, the answer is net metering is such a good policy that you'd have to have a specific need for those batteries, and battery technology still has a little ways to go.
Can I address that real quickly? Just a couple of things. We got a couple questions online about batteries. Is net metering mandatory, or could someone go off the grid? Which is, if you're willing to pay for the battery, sure. And similarly, they have friends in Colorado with large batteries. Can we do that in Illinois? And yes, batteries are expensive. My husband and I went solar 11 months ago. So we've had 10 bills. And at the time that we looked into it, there were two options for a battery. One was like a whole house battery. And one was a backup if the grid went down. Obviously a difference in price between those two options. And if you chose the backup, you had to designate specific outlets that were the ones that were going to be live, even if ComEd went down. So it's something, if you have someone in your house who is on life-saving medical equipment, yeah, it's probably worth it. For us, even doing the simplest option would have almost doubled the cost. Not the $40,000 kind of cost.
Yeah.
What we
Well,
wound
that
up
brings up
paying.
another question, and maybe you still have it. Like, what happens when there's a power outage? Do you still have power? The answer is no, because you're generating electricity, you're tied to the grid. If they're working up on the wires, your power could endanger them. So we have to go down. Now, my solution personally for power outage is I bought a $300 power generator that I'll plug my freezer in, because that was the only thing I was really concerned about. And in all the years I've been on solar, I haven't taken it out of the box. I just, we get little power outages. It doesn't last very long. So again, I've never been able to economically justify.
Read the question so that I'm certain that I get this exactly what they're asking. So you referenced having an electric vehicle. I'll remind you, we're talking about EVs 3 weeks from tonight, if you're interested in that program. But how does solar and net metering tie in with hourly pricing and electric vehicle charging?
That's, you can be on hourly pricing and have solar, and beyond that, I don't have hourly pricing. I do know some individuals I can, if need be. You have both. So I mean, you can do hourly pricing, and a couple of people that I know that have solar and do it, they swear by it. Works great.
What we might do with some of these, if it's okay, because there are some questions that start to get very specific, but maybe we can gather some answers. And when we get the video posted on YouTube, maybe I'll get some answers from, for the folks who are on Zoom, there's a gentleman in the audience who has those options. So we can talk about that a little more. Another thing is that I also have an electric vehicle, and you can sign up with ComEd, particularly in the summertime, on days when they're having an excessive draw, when it's very hot out. They'll send you a text message and say, hey, go turn everything off, basically, right? Reduce your usage, and they'll give you a credit if you do those things. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, those are the things that are coming down the road, that's called vehicle to grid. Since your car, I have electric car, we're plugged in. Imagine a million homes with EVs plugged in. They could actually, send that to the grid and help during high demand periods of time. So there are these things coming in the future. It's vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, vehicle to grid, where your car is the battery pack that you're talking about. And it's like, hell, they'll get me through this power outage, perhaps.
Yeah. And I believe we've got the answer to this, but someone is asking if solar panels can replace gas and electric or just electric. And you would have to do a pretty major conversion of your home to not use any gas, like to not have a gas furnace, gas stove, gas dryer.
Yeah, I've kind of experienced that myself. I as I replace appliances, I'm in a little older home. It's about 40 years old. I have a 200 amp service or something, and I have I recently had a level 2 charger installed, a 220 line, and they looked at the house, and the previous owner put a second kitchen in, and so when he looked at the service panel, he's going, "You're maxed out. We're going to need to bring another line in from the street." So that's they didn't build homes for the direction we're heading, which is more and more electricity. So I'm kind of at my limit, and it hurts me to replace a clothes dryer and buy a gas dryer again. But you know, I guess I'm looking towards again the government to look at these problems and offer help, so that you know, I can go in the direction that they want us to go, but you know, we all have limits budget wise, so
Yeah.
it's challenges.
Yeah. And we'll just ask if you would repeat the gentleman's question so that the folks on Zoom can hear it. Thank you.
You mentioned that you were close to paying off the investment you made in your current house. So that was installed 2017. We're now 2023, so that's like about, you estimate a 6-year payback.
I'm sorry, what?
You estimate that it's a 6-year payback based upon your.
No, I mean,
price
it's a,
estimation.
yeah. Yeah, I was left with close to $10,000. No, I've got a few more years. You're asking, you know, how long the payback period is for me. If I'm getting about $1,000 a year savings on my electricity, then yeah, I guess you know, I'm 3 to 4 years away from saying, okay, I'm all paid back. But I'm personally, I don't like talking about payback. I mean, you know, when you're always going to use electricity. I tended to like the idea of like, what is my electricity costing me? By going, you know, I like looking at the cents per kilowatt hour rather than.
That's fine. You stay in your house for 20 years, 30 years, but if you're a professional and you move around, okay, I don't believe you get your money back on house appreciation. Given my experience of buyers, when you make other investments in your house, put new stuff in.
Yeah.
Just no interest. It's base price and that's it. So if you're moving every 8 years, even like for us, for instance, we'll probably move on in 6 to 8 years. I justify this investment. Do community solar.
Yeah. Yeah. I can also speak to that one. We installed ours, as I said, 11 months ago. And my husband really didn't want to do this because he's like, well, it's not a full year yet, but I made him break it out for me. So 10 months in, we've saved $1,000. Now there are many options. Peter discussed a few of them, but our upfront, we wound up doing an upfront lease cost because we will, in theory, retire and move in the next 10 years or so. And so we paid $8,000. So
the only issue that is that if you're selling, the buyer has to take that over, okay? And you may not want to do that.
yes,
So
and
that's an issue.
right.
With buyers and sellers.
And that was one of the questions that I asked the installer was that because it's a lease, if the people it's a 20-year lease, if the people who purchase the house don't want it, will they come take it off? And they will. So, I mean, it's, as they said, there's a number of different options. There's reasons to do it. There may be reasons not to do it. Community solar might be your best option. So, I have one more and kind of speaks to that of someone asking if you can compare community solar to home system savings, do you see one is more beneficial or one offering greater savings than the other?
Well, yeah, you're asking whether owning a system compared to community solar, which is the best return. Owning your own equipment, of course. There's no middle person involved. With community solar, overall, you're saying saving about 10% compared to doing nothing. And that's great. I mean, it's a very easy process. Takes a few minutes to make that happen. The downside is you'll have two bills coming in instead of the one. But again, for me, the main message is that we have to be moving in the direction of less reliance on aging nuclear reactors. And a coal industry that's just not competitive anymore. It's very expensive and it's dirty. So if you can support that move, save 10%, and it just takes lifting a little finger, do that. And then if something better comes along, you can cancel and move. But we all have an individual responsibility to change our behavior, and this is one logical choice. Yes, sir.
Few slides back, you had that you can join your organization and you get access to credit. How much does it cost to join your organization?
I think
If you could repeat,
it's like
repeat the question,
$35.
please.
$35 for an individual membership.
What's the benefit of joining the credit union?
The credit union. I haven't looked at that's really new. And they like, if you're looking to borrow money for a renewable energy project, they may be a source for that. That's what they do, is they fund renewable energy projects. So but it was, I haven't looked deep into it because I had no.
And I was going to say, I think we're at a point where we probably need to wrap up. As I said, there are a couple of questions that are still outstanding, but I think they might be a little more complex than we can address right here. So I will share them with you and you can point us to the answers, and we'll include that on the YouTube post when we get that online. I will send an email to everyone when that YouTube video goes live. We don't edit. It's not a TED Talk. It's fairly raw when we put it up, but there is a little bit of processing that I need to do for that to be ready. So probably won't be ready by tomorrow, hopefully by the end of the week. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks, folks, for joining us online.